forbidding personality of your Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam Namaskritya Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaram Udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasdev, the author. Nashtapareshu Bhakreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki. By regular attendance in the classes on Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise we transcend the songs, is established in every devotee fact. Om Jnana Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and the mysteries Master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Lokam karoti vachalam pangum langarate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Guru Vignaranam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of the fallen souls. His mercy grants the dumb and eloquent speakers, and enables the weak to cross mountains.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 13th chapter. We're reading from 16 to 37. Well, the setting is of the place of Mahabharata. Everyone usually has their favorite stories and pastimes. Who has Mahabharata as their favorite? I'm actually happy no one answered because... Oh, you did? Oh, sorry, I couldn't see that side. Why would you say Mahabharata's your favorite?
Everything is like the Bhagavatam and the Gita is from inside of Mahabharata.
Okay, Bhagavad Gita is definitely an instruction and a poetic instruction from Krishna, from Mahabharata, that is embedded in Mahabharata, that is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna gave Bhagavad Gita during Mahabharata pastime, so to speak. Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam is not from Mahabharata. That is another scripture by itself. But Mahabharata is significant because it is a type of scripture which is also called itihas, which some people loosely translate it to as history. Itihas, and the beautiful thing about Sanskrit language is that the words are quite lively. There are no quite exact English translations. Itihas doesn't just mean history. It means an alive history, a relevant history. Something happens to Kunti Maharani. What about it? Right? Like, what does it matter to you? Is it just a story? Well, one thing is that the character arcs that you see in Mahabharata, the emotions that people go through, and if you don't know, every character of Mahabharata, it has been mentioned what they were in their previous lives and previous lives. So if you get into a character, you live through them totally, and then you live through their complex web of emotions that they have, and then you're able to feel all of those complex set of emotions and evolve as a person. That's the nature of all our scriptures. But itihasas like Ramayana, Mahabharata, they're very much helpful in that way. They help people to not directly jump from total mundane focused life or material focused life into very directly hardcore spirituality like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So itihas serves as a bridge. And above all, these are alive lessons, so to speak, which are not purely history facts that help us to learn from it. But of course, the important thing is that Krishna himself was present. So that makes these scriptures different than any other history scriptures. But I'm glad that not most of you don't have Mahabharata as your favorite. Everyone has their choice. Because sometimes it can be a little harsh. So we'll read Bhagavatam today, maybe one by one.
Text 16. Having won his kingdom and observed the birth of one grandson, competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaj Yudhishthira resigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who were all expert administration to the common people.
Prabhu, do you want to read the
So,
17? Text 17.
Instrumental, eternal time, and integrally overcomes those who are too much attached to families' affairs and are always engrossed in their thoughts.
Mahatma Vidur knew all these, and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you."
Let's read a little quicker, please. Turn by turn.
This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world, but my Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time that has approached us to all.
Text 20. Whoever is under the influence of supreme power, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life. And what is pure other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home?
Your father, brother, well wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another.
You have been blinded from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you are suffering of lupus.
Alas, alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by demons.
There is no need to live a degraded life. Insist on the charity of those whom you try to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted their married wife and usurped their kingdom and wealth.
Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment.
He is called undisturbed who goes to an unknown, remote place free from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless.
He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands, either by himself or from others, the falsity and misery of this material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart.
Please, therefore, look for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon that time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men.
Until what was his
37. Reading till 37.
Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the second of the family of Ajameda, family convinced by introspective knowledge, prajna, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation, as directed by his younger brother Vidura.
Text 30. The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of the Subal of Gandhar or Gandhar, followed her husband, saying that he was going to the Himalayan mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the denounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good ration from that.
Maharaj Yudhishthira, whose enemy was never born reformed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire, sacrifice
Yes, sacrifice.
to the sun god, and offering obeisance, grain,
months, he then entered the place to pay respect to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncles or aunt who both protest of his about.
Text 32. Mahayudhishthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, O Sanjaya, where is our uncle and who is old and blind?
Text 33. Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura, and my mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? Uncle Dhritarashtra is also very mortified due to death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful that he therefore take my offences very seriously and, along with his wife, drown himself in the Ganges.
But my father Pandu fell down and we were all small children. These two uncles gave us protection from all kinds of calamities. They were always our good well-wishers. Alas, where have they gone from here?
Sutya Goswami said, because of comparison and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master, Dharashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaj's
First, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthira.
Sanjay said, my dear descendant of the Guru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles and Gandhar. O king, I have been cheated by those great souls.
Thank you. We'll expand on 23rd, 23. But I don't know how much you could pay attention so far. What's happening is quite funny. Vidur, who is a great devotee of Lord Krishna, he's trying to put some sense into Dhritarashtra. How many people here are Dhritarashtras?
I think everyone
More or less. You know, if I have to give everyone a quality, it could be someone could be a caring person, and someone could be a kind person, an outgoing book distributing person. Dhritarashtra, if you have to give him a quality, it would probably be attached. So Dhritarashtra, who was throughout his life attached to his sons and his position. His younger brother Pandu, maybe not by birth hierarchy, but by prowess deserved the throne. Somehow Dhritarashtra got it, but if you read these finer nuances in Mahabharata, you'll see yourself maybe reflecting and an undertone through Dhritarashtra's tendencies. How he acts like, oh, he doesn't really want it, but when he gets the throne, he's so happy, and he's not able to let it go. And then he thinks maybe to Pandu, his brother's sons, he'll give the throne next, because it's their right to. But then when it's his chance to very easily give one instruction, one order, and give away the throne, he doesn't just do it. He gives all kinds of scriptural references to all kinds of things in Mahabharata, but avoids giving up attachment to his throne, to his kingdom, to his family. Only at the end, when his family was entirely wiped out, all his 101, over 100 sons were killed, and his most favorite Duryodhana was killed. Even then he was attached to that palace, and he continued living there under the shelter of those who had killed his sons, in the guise of that I'm only living with my family. So this Dhritarashtra mindset or this Dhritarashtra syndrome can kick in sometimes. Subtle to notice, but it's good sooner than later. Now we'll read 23rd verse from this entire reading, if we can. Yes. Aho mahiyasi jantor Jivitasha yatha bhavan Bhima pava jitam pindam Adate griha palavat. Aho mahi yasi jantur. Second line of the verse.
Oh, Jivyasa Yanta Bhavan.
Jivitasha yatha bhavan.
Bhima pavarjitam pindam.
Bhima pavajitam pindam. Fourth line.
Yeah.
Griha palavat. Palavat. Thank you. Jivita yatha bhavan. Bhima.
Bhima pavarjitam pindam.
Bhima pavajitam pindam. Adate griha palavat. Aho mahiyasi janto. Jivitasha yatha bhavan.
Bhima pavarjitam pindam.
Bhima pavarjitam pindam. Adate griha palavat. Aho mahiyasi jantur. Jivitasha yatha bhavan. Bhima pavarjitam pindam. Adate griha palavat. Aho mahiyasi janto. Jivitasha yatha bhavan. Bhima pavarjitam pindam. Adate griha palavat. Word by word together. Aho, alas, mahiyasi, powerful, jantoha, of living being. Jivita asha, hopeful life. Yatha, as much as. Bhavan, you are. Bhima, of Bhimsen, brother of Yudhishthir's. Aparjitam, remnants. Pindam, foodstuff. Adate, eaten by. Griha Pallava Avat, like a household dog. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Together, alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Really, your life, just like a household dog, and eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Purport's quite short, I'll read it. You guys didn't quite read like you've had breakfast so far. A sadhu should never flatter kings or rich men to live comfortably at their cost. A sadhu is to speak to the householders about the naked truth of life so that they may come to their senses about the precarious life in material existence. Dhritarashtra is a typical example of an attached old man in household life. He had become a pauper in a true sense, yet he wanted to live comfortably in the house of Pandavas, of whom Bhima especially is mentioned because personally he killed two prominent sons of Dhritarashtra, namely Duryodhana and Dushasana. These two sons were very much dear to him for their notorious and nefarious activities. And Bhima is particularly pointed out because he killed these two pet sons. Why was Dhritarashtra living there at the house of the Pandavas? Because he wanted to continue his life comfortably, even at the risk of all humiliation. Vidura, therefore, was astonished. How powerful is the urge to continue life? His sense of continuing one's life indicates that a living being is eternally a living entity and does not want to change his bodily habitation. The foolish man does not know that a particular term of bodily existence is awarded to him to undergo a term of imprisonment. And the human body is awarded, after many, many births and deaths, as a chance for self-realization to go back home, back to Godhead. But persons like Dhritarashtra try to make plans to live there in a comfortable position with profit and interest, for they do not see things as they are. Samanavitaha. Dhritarashtra is blind and continues to hope to live comfortably in the midst of all kinds of reverses of life. A sadhu like Vidur is meant to awaken such blind persons and help them go back to Godhead, where life is eternal. Once going there, no one wants to come back to this material world of miseries. We can just imagine how responsible a task is entrusted to a sadhu like Mahatma Vidur. So, there's two things that I want for all of us to focus over here. One thing and more important thing is that how Vidur spoke what he did. And another thing is the very contents of what he said. Is it, by the way, your first time in the class here, for both of you? Welcome. We're very glad to have you. Yes. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam together is said to be such a blessing, especially during this auspicious time of spring season, when the berries are abundant on the trees and flowers are blossoming. Always a good time to read scriptures. And how old are you? 13. Whoa, you're something. Thank you for coming. We'll try to make it as less as boring as possible for you. So, how Vidur is speaking over here is in a very strong way. He's using some harsh words to get some sense into the Dhritarashtra. Should have been assigned this verse. To the extent that it is humiliating. And as Prabhupada rightly pointed out in the purport, is that Vidur is talking about Bhima while chastising. Why Bhima? He could have mentioned Yudhishthir, because ultimately King Yudhishthir was ruling the kingdom. So Dhritarashtra was living under the shelter of King Yudhishthir. Okay, if not him, maybe for whatever, maybe Yudhishthir is very nice to everyone and almost naive, too naive to be nice sometimes, So maybe if he mentions Yudhishthir, then Dhritarashtra, being the Moodamati that he is, he won't understand that why is it an insult to be with Yudhishthir, because Yudhishthir is so nice anyway. And Arjuna, well, it could be whatever reasons. I don't want to speculate. But Bhima, for sure, Prabhupada mentions that Bhima is one person, if you know Mahabharata, Dhritarashtra always had major problems with, because he killed Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra's favorite son. To the extent that when the battle of Mahabharata got over and everyone came back home, well, those who were left alive, then Dhritarashtra plotted to kill Bhima, just Bhima in particular, by putting in a huge metallic, by hugging him so tight that by killing him with a hug. Talk about hugs that we won many times. Because he's said to be so powerful in his arms because of his austerity that he could have just practically kill Bhima with his tight clasp. But of course, Krishna's there, so he saved Bhima by putting in a metallic replica over there, which Dhritarashtra ultimately hugged and demolished. So this is how attached Dhritarashtra became at a point that to such a person who he hated so much, and maybe he had his justifiable reasons, at least justifiable intensity, that he was willing to live right beside him in the same court as him, eat with him, joke with him. So to that extent, he was under illusion, because he was not at all willing to be a little uncomfortable about leaving the place. Comfort zone is one of the biggest enemies that we have, especially on the spiritual paths. And then only a sadhu's chastising and seemingly means it seems like, but it's not in reality. Seemingly bitter words can get us out of that comfort zone, seeking that comfort zone, and put some sense into our head. Now, but Vidur is a pure devotee, and we read it in the readings yesterday. I don't know how much of you remember, but Vidur has just come back from a very, very strong pilgrimage. He performed a lot of austerities, and he realized his self. So he's coming as a very elevated person. His true self he realized. So from that right, he has an authority to chastise people. And also he's not doing it for the pleasure of chastising people. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please. And he's not doing it as a right to chastise people. because he knows in that moment that will work. So as an elevated soul, he's using it. It could be very easy for us to also try to copy him by trying to being hard on other Vaishnavas. But then we don't have that kind of a sense that Vidur has. We have not performed perhaps half the austerities, at least not in this lifetime, to be able to get to that understanding when to be harsh to others and when to be soft to others. So we're supposed to follow what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 17.15, which is Anudavega karam vakyam satyam priya hitam chayet swadhyaya abhyasranam chaiva vanamayam tapa uchyate, which translates to austerity of speech consists in speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is clearly giving instruction that you should not only talk sense, but talk nicely also. And that is the way that people will receive it the most. So not to copy Dr. Vidur. That's my doctor's name. Never mind. So that's the kind of mood we should have while talking, because Krishna directly is asking us to have that mood. That's how it works. But let's look into what Vidur is saying now. Beyond all the mood and context, he's really talking sense to Dhritarashtra. Well, I'll get it right. Dhritarashtra. He's really talking sense to Dhritarashtra. Okay, so how many are aware of the Yaksha Prashna that happens in Mahabharata? I think most of you are. So, long story short, Pandavas are the 5 brothers. You're familiar with the story of Pandavas? Oh, bro. So, it's the biggest story that has ever been created. It's bigger than any Shakespeare story. It's called Mahabharata. Have you heard of the word? Yes. You heard of Krishna? Of course. So Krishna is, of course, he's the master strategist behind everything and anything that happens in our universe, in our lives. We just don't know it because of our ignorance. But he's God. He plays these pawns and pieces of puzzle together. So one of the stories where Krishna was present, one of the pastimes that it's called, there were 5 brothers who were, because of some manipulation, they were asked to just go to a forest. So they went into an exile. So over there, they were very thirsty at one point. So they were there traveling with their mother and their wife. They shared a wife. Don't ask me how that happened. It'll be very hard to explain right now. But some circumstances led to it. And it was allowed that at time legally. So they landed to a pond of water. One of the brothers did, the eldest, Yudhishthir. But he couldn't just simply take water because he overheard a voice asking him a few questions before he could take water. The voice was of a yaksha. Yaksha are different beings who are not embodied like us. They are said to be of different origin. Yakshas, Gandharvas, Kinnaras. And just like we are Manushyas, like we're human beings. So there are different living beings all around the universe. So Yaksha is a mystical being. They're empowered in a certain way. They have magical powers. He started to ask different questions to Yudhishthir before he could take water from the pond. Because Yaksha owned that pond. That was his property. And he had some kind of fetish by asking questions. I don't know. That's how he felt happy. So one of the questions that he asked Yudhishthir Maharaj was that what is the greatest wonder in life? And then Yudhishthir Maharaj replies that people see death every day, and yet they think they will live forever. And Dhritarashtra is a perfect example of it. He's just seen over 100 deaths of his own sons. You know, if we see other people dying in other families. Sorry for using death in this class. It's quite ghastly, it seems, but it is the most fundamental reality of our lives. Is it guaranteed that we will live forever? Actually, we won't. As our reality, we experience it. We see that people cease to exist at some point. But death is for certain. That happens to everyone. It's the only certainty in life, and people forget it. So, here, Mr. Dhritarashtra is going through a similar syndrome, that he's thinking that he'll live in this body forever, even though he's seeing his own body deteriorate every year after year. He was a blind person from birth. But now, we just read all together in the text that he's coughing mucus. He's even further deteriorating. So he cannot even see the changes in himself and realize that, well, his time is limited. He was so much caught under delusion. But why was he under so much of a delusion after all? Has Vyasadeva really been mean on this one person by putting in all these negative qualities on him? And he's trying to send some message to us. We have to really, really study this character of Dhritarashtra to understand that why are we under this delusion that we will be here forever in this material world, that we have all the time in our life to keep doing stupid things which may not be of so use to us after all. We have to really look deep into it. So Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 16th verse says, Nashato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate shataha ubhayor api drishtontas tavayantayos tatvad darshabhihi. Translation: those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existent material body there is no endurance, and that of the eternal soul there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. So Krishna here is saying that those who know the truth, they know that this body is temporary and our real identity, the soul, is permanent. But Prabhupada explains in the purport that there is no endurance of the changing body. The body doesn't endure, it keeps changing. It keeps changing every moment by the actions and reactions of different cells that is admitted by modern medical science. And thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the pranam mantras, in the prayers that we offer to Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya, leading guru in our tradition, who founded ISKCON, is that he is Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. So he eliminates the arguments of impersonalists. But here, Srila Prabhupada is actually referencing to impersonalists to put forth the point. What he's trying to say, because we know Srila Prabhupada think of impersonalists to be of such low category of intelligent people among the spiritualists, that he obviously doesn't think of them very highly, but here he's citing them to demonstrate a point. So he's trying to say that point is so obvious that even impersonalists are getting it. And yet we seem to forget it. That is, our body keeps changing with time and it will degrade one day. You know, if you've ever studied some medical science, there are different cells. We have cardiac cells in our heart, and then our brain has gray cells, and there are muscle cells that we have. Most cells in our body, they have a lifespan of 24 hours. After 24 hours, our bodily cells, most cells, they undergo a process called mitosis. There is one cell, am I right? One cells, it splits into two. So that cell is not even remaining anymore. New fresh ones have come up in 24 hours. So, and over a period of time, every cell of our body has undergone, and there are fresh cells that are brimming within us. Oh well, maybe we don't have a cellular consciousness, but we clearly see ourselves getting older, getting taller. Our hair may be graying, some of us, and then hair starting to grow when it wasn't growing before. We can clearly see that this is going towards a certain aging direction, and yet we remain disillusioned. Why? Because Krishna is mentioning in the Bhagavad Gita that only the seers of truth realize it. So that means that we are ignorant of the truth. That is why we don't understand it. Now, because we are ignorant of our own truth, something is happening. What is happening? Moha. So Krishna then says in the 7th chapter, 13th verse of Bhagavad Gita, that Tribhir Gunamayir Bhaver Ebihi Sarvamidam Jagat Mohitham Nabijanti Mam Ebhayaha Param Avyayam, which he means, translation is deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, ignorance. The whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So he's clearly mentioning that those who do not know the truth, they take this body to be permanent. Then again, he's clearly mentioning that we get deluded by the three modes, which is why we don't know the truth, which is why we don't know Krishna. So the problem is that we don't know our real selves. Why is that happening? Because we get deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So there are these three qualities that delude us. Okay, and then out of that delusion or moham, what happens next is attachment. It is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam's 2.1.4 that Dehapatya kala tradesh atma sanyesu atsva api tesham paramatmo paramato nidhanam prashyan apina pashyati. Here, it's been clearly mentioned that persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problem of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Although sufficiently experienced, we have experienced the situations of our life enough to know the situations are temporary, the people in our lives are temporary. Our very body is temporary and it's always changing. But again, Bhagavatam is saying, persons devoid of Atma Tattva, people who are not aware of their true selves, they become attached to body, children, and wife. So what to do? We're ignorant, don't know the truth. Out of that, we get delusioned or fall into moha. Out of that, we develop attachments, and then we suffer those attachments. So what to do is the question. Well, if the Shastras are so kind enough to show us the problem, and they're also very kind to offer us the solution. But obviously, the very first step is to really recognize that we are in a problem. Dhritarashtra did not recognize that problem. So he was left under that delusion all throughout. What did it take for a sadhu to chastise him? For him to understand that he has taken his body to be permanent? Well, it's only a mucus generating coughing body. I don't know why he's being so hard on him after all. So, we have a solution, but the solution is coming not from Vidur this time, but from Vidur's Lord Krishna himself. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, the second verse of Shikshashtakam basically, Krishna himself, he says to us that Nam Namakari Bahudanij Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamina Smaranena Kala Etadashi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Duradaiva Midrishami Hajani Nanugraha. That is, and this is Krishna in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking, that my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity, and therefore you have many names such as Krishna and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You've invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen, conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, I'm so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy names. Therefore, I do not achieve attachment for chanting. So again, Krishna is pointing out that the name of Krishna has all the potency and all the power to relieve us from all these problems of delusion, attachment, from not knowing the truth, that what is our Atma Tattva, what is our true selves. And at that time, Krishna, many instances, offered this guidance to people in the story of Mahabharata also. Many times he offered guidance to Dhritarashtra, to his sons also. He was present very much in body. They did not listen. So we can think of that our problems could be solved if Krishna appears in front of us, because that is the highest. If God appears, maybe at that time we will become disillusioned. Well, that didn't happen, of course, because of Krishna's will, of course, but that didn't happen in Mahabharata times also. Because Krishna is enough, because there is no difference between Krishna and his name, but his name is important. Whenever Kunti Maharani and Pandavas would fall into problems, they would remember Krishna, they would call out his name. While cooking, Draupadi is taking Krishna's names. So attachment to chanting Krishna's name is the solution. Attachment to chanting Krishna's name and Krishna himself are not two different things in a sense. But people who are so fallen, who are so delusioned, like Dhritarashtra, and perhaps some of us, me of course, even if Krishna would come and say, it wouldn't work. So Mahaprabhu is telling them, you have to develop attachment to chanting the name of Krishna. And that is the solution. So, how do you develop this attachment to chanting the holy names of Krishna? By chanting, yes.
By being in the association of the devotees.
Yes. By chanting itself, it can help. But we see many people chanting for a period of time and they may fall away from this chanting process for a period of time. That answer is spot on. Srila Gaur Govind Maharaj, he says that the only way is that by serving sadhus, Vaishnavas, eating their remnants, drinking their charnamrit. And that is the only way that they can feed Krishna prema to us. We have to beg for it. We can never earn it. So chanting is the solution. Developing an attachment to the chanting is the solution. But that can only and only happen through sadhu sangha. You know why is that? Because let's say if you've taken a doctor's degree, then you have a right to earn income through a doctor's profession. Please try to understand what I'm trying to say. It becomes your adhikar. It becomes your right. So one can think of that if they do some austerity or do some sadhana, then it can become their right to get Krishna prema, to realize their true selves, to go back to Godhead, to where Krishna lives forever. But it is not an adhikar of a nitya baddha jiva, of the living entities which are created. Nitya means forever, baddha means bound. If they're forever bound, forever means always. If they're always bound, that means, so if I say that, for an example, if someone cannot ever become a doctor, so they cannot get a doctor's degree. Let's say if someone, you're very smart, a 2-year-old, can they get a doctor's degree? It is just not possible. It is not their adhikar to get a doctor's degree. No one ever sitting there thinks of that, oh, my 2-year child, why hasn't he or she have received their doctorate degree yet? Because it's not their right, it's not their constitutional position. So to the living entities which are created by Krishna in the causal ocean, in the tathastha area, the marginal area, it is not in their constitutional position even to get Krishna prema. Gaur Govind Maharaj says, and the words of sadhu are taken to be as shastra. But from those who are nitya siddhas, it is their constitutional position to have Krishna prema and bhakti in them. So we have to beg it from them. Srila Prabhupada came. He's a pure devotee. It has become his right. Or maybe it always was. I don't want to speculate. But what I'm trying to say is that only from mercy of pure devotees will we get it. Will we know the truth. So we have a little bit of a time to beg together. Begging is a fancy thing because who can really beg? Only those who realize that they don't have it. Only people who don't have money can go out begging for it. Right? Our dear, no one here is rich enough for me to be, or neither do I want to take names, but maybe me. I have enough savings in my account. I don't qualify to be a beggar monetarily, honestly speaking, even though I'm a brahmachari. What are yours? Bhiksham Dehi? I can beg for many things. I keep begging for people's attention and attachment because that's a different matter. That's my Dhritarashtra mode. But only those who sincerely realize that they don't have money can beg for money. And only those who sincerely realize that they will never be able to earn the money, they don't have the adhikar, will beg for it. So please see, if you're puffed up about sadhana, and you people aren't, but maybe at some point you will, then you will know, you will think it's your adhikar to be chanting Krishna's name. It is not your right. It's purely mercy. Then you will beg. And the best beggars are acharyas. This is not in a degrading way, in a spiritual way. Our very teachers, if you really look at them, what are they doing? They're begging Krishna all the time for his love. They have that love. They are embodying it. We can see it. It's flowing through them. We're getting it from them, but they're begging for it. Spiritual beggars. So we can beg to Krishna, but if we haven't even realized honestly, and many of us haven't, or at least in moment to moment do we realize that we will never be able to realize the truth to be able to earn Krishna prema? No. We get delusion because we have moha, we have attachment. All of these things we just discussed. I don't want to go into it again. Therefore, it's safe and it's better to use the acharya's words ourselves. So when we go, we should pray with our own words, of course, that develops a relationship with Krishna. But a lot of our prayer should also be using acharya's words, which is why in the arati time in the morning, we use their words. Otherwise, ChatGPT can generate a fresh bhajan every day. And who knows if it sounds musically awesome too. But it won't have that effect because our acharyas have begged using those specific words and Krishna has accepted those prayers. Well, they begged because Krishna wanted them to, that's a leela. But Krishna has accepted those words. And therefore, when we use those exact same words to beg, even though we don't mean it, in our heart we don't mean it. We don't know, we don't think we're beggars. We think we're kings in our hearts. But if we use those words which have already been accepted, then in spite of being so puffed up, Krishna's like, okay, at least he's using my beggar's words. So he accepts the prayers. So in that mood, we can try to pray a little using the words of our acharyas. And there is this bhajan, which I will sing terribly. And I want you to sing with me. It's by, if you can have the lyrics, it's by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. This is called Hari Hari Bifale. So, our Acharya here, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he's clearly explaining that, and he's elevated, but he's saying that he's spent his life uselessly. He's calling himself a Dhritarashtra, which he is not. He's saying he is unknowingly drunk poison of sense gratification, a poison of thinking that he's the king, that he's the center of all the activities, a poison of being delusioned and being under moha, being under attachments. And then he says that he has, when will the attraction for chanting come about? We will read the translations together. He thinks of when will he develop an attachment for chanting, one who already has it. And then he ultimately says that he takes shelter of Krishna, Mahaprabhu. So if we use his words, even though we're not really hankering for that attachment for chanting, we will still get it. Because we just looked at how. Hari Hari Bifale Janama Go Naino Hari Hari Bifale Janama Go Naino Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nama Jiya Manushya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Nama Jiya Chaniya Shuniya Vishakha here means poison. Translation. O Lord Hari, I've spent my life uselessly, having obtained the human birth, and having not worshipped Radha and Krishna. I have knowingly drunk poison, knowingly he admits that now he knows. Has descended as the congregational chant of Lord Hari's holiness. Where did my attraction for those chanting never comes out? Day and night my heart burns from the fire of the poison of worldliness, Dhritarashtra, and I have not taken the means to relieve it. Rajendra came to deliver all those souls who are lowly and wretched. The true sinners Jagai and Babai are evidence of this. Last translation. O Lord Krishna, son of Nanda, accompanied by the daughter of Krishna, please be merciful to me. Narottam says the Lord, please push me away from your reddish lotus feet. Who is beloved except for you? Actually, if you read further in this chapter, you will discover that Dhritarashtra does come to his senses and he goes for a penance where he performs Ashtanga Yoga and he merges into Brahman effulgence. So Krishna was there with him, and still the topmost destination for he get was Brahman effulgence, which is fine, good for him. But being Krishna is very important. It comes by Krishna's will, being He here with us. But attachment to the names is the important thing, of course. And that's the essence. Solution to moh, attachment, and our very own personal Dhritarashtra syndrome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We don't have any time. But if you have one question. Question?
Yes. So this is regarding taste in chanting. And you said that, you quoted beautifully Gaur Govind Maharaj, that it is only possible by serving sadhus and taking their eminence. So then why don't we just do that? Why do we have to, also do some other things like keep on chanting and I don't know, a lot of austerities and you're getting my point maybe.
One thing is that all these things are not different. They are same in tattva in a sense, essentially. But please see, do you think without chanting anyone can get to be in a close association of a sadhu? They can land up in a room where a pure Vaishnava is present if they're not chanted anything. Or if they're in a close association of a Vaishnava and if they serve them, if they eat their remnants. In their heart, the attachment to chanting, it will automatically sprout. So you are saying that why do we need to chant if we can't just serve them? You try to serve them and not chant. And you see your heart will crave for. You will be walking there and your heart will say Krishna. That's not chanting. She's cooking in the forest, Draupadi. She's chanting Krishna all the time. She's singing Krishna all the time. So it will automatically happen, you can't control it, because these things are not two different things. I don't know how far did I answer it, but
I think it's correct.
Hearing, philosophy, everything is supremely important also because we're a conditioned mind. If our mind was as simple as a little kid in terms of our relationship with Krishna, in 1 second a sadhu could pour it to you. Right? So we have to do so many things because we're thinking minds. We have to do austerity, we have to do vratas, we have to do sankalpas, we have to do so many things. Chanting is not even a vrata or a sankalpa. It is just remembering Krishna idly, if your mood is like that. But if you serve Vaishnavas, it will flow through you. You can't avoid it.
I just want to say one last thing. Actually, it makes sense because Sundar Chaitanya Maharaj, in his class, he was saying that so when Mahaprabhu asked Ramanand Rai, or he asked someone that who is a Vaishnava, Mahaprabhu asked, or actually devotees asked Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu said first, he said one who chants Krishna's name one time is a devotee. Second time when they asked who is a Vaishnava, he said one who always chants Krishna's name is a Vaishnava. And then third time when they asked who is a Vaishnava, they said by whose very presence you feel like chanting Krishna's name. Uttamadhikari. So they are pure devotees. Like you said, like you cannot help but chant Krishna's name in presence of pure devotees. So that is one of them.
Yes. But Govardhan Maharaj is serving all the Vaishnavas also. So, hey, you're Uttama, I want to give you water. Or, sorry, not Uttama, but other ones. Kanishya. They're all Uttama for us. Everyone who's sitting here. Hare Krishna.